For me, I realized that there was a net benefit, which is you're going to keep me out of jail.
Well, she did actually pay for you to get out of jail.
She
did actually pay for you. That's one of the stories in the book.
Yes.
Every journey to success has a chapter that rarely gets told. The gritty, humbling, sometimes embarrassing parts that make the triumph even sweeter. Most of us know Chip and Joanna Gaines as the picture-perfect home-renovating power couple from HGTV's Fixer Upper. From transforming run-down houses into dream homes to launching a lifestyle empire rooted in charm and simplicity, they've become modern American icons. But what you might not know is that their climb to the top wasn't as glamorous as it looks on TV. Behind every stunning Magnolia kitchen backsplash and shiplap wall was a period of struggle, lessons learnt the hard way, and yes, at least one very memorable night in jail. Before their days of curated Instagram grids and best-selling books, there was a time when $10,500 in unpaid tickets threatened to unravel everything, and what followed was a pivotal wake-up call for the Gaines family. So, what really happened? Let's rewind and unpack the twists, tension, and yes, the life sentence that got people talking. It's hard to imagine now, but the empire that is Chip and Joanna Gaines nearly came to a screeching halt because of a couple of adventurous dogs. Long before they were flipping houses on TV or launching lifestyle brands, they were just a young couple trying to stay afloat, juggling a newborn baby, a fledgling business, and 2 dogs with a serious roaming problem. Their neighborhood, like most quiet suburbs, didn't exactly appreciate unsupervised pets running amok. The dogs became repeat offenders, turning front yards into their personal playgrounds. Despite mounting complaints, Chip, optimistic and maybe a bit distracted with life, kept pushing the issue to the back burner. Tickets came, and instead of dealing with them, he treated them like junk mail, unread and ignored. But bureaucracy has a long memory, and it wasn't long before those ignored tickets snowballed into something much more serious. One day, a warrant for Chip's arrest was issued. And yes, it was over dogs. Suddenly, the local handyman with dreams bigger than his bank account was sitting in a county jail cell, stunned and probably thinking, this wasn't in the plan. The bail? $800. Not astronomical, but when you're living on the edge financially, every dollar counts. And Joanna? She had to shut down her day and dig into her small shop's register and safe just to get him out. That jail stay was more than just a funny anecdote. It became a turning point. In a very raw and real way, it exposed just how fragile their financial life was. It wasn't just the embarrassment of the arrest or the scramble to find bail money. It was the deeper realization that something had to give. They couldn't keep skating by on hope and hustle alone. There needed to be strategy, structure, and serious change. This moment, as chaotic and ridiculous as it sounds, became the catalyst for a shift in how they approached both life and business. It forced uncomfortable conversations. It forced them to look hard at the choices they were making and what kind of foundation they were building, not just for their business, but for their family. And that uncomfortable, humiliating experience became the unlikely spark that fueled their future empire. So yes, Chip Gaines went to jail over dogs, but those misbehaving pets may have been the best thing that ever happened to them. That night, the night she bailed Chip out of jail over unpaid dog-related fines, marked more than just a wild story. For Joanna, it hit like a freight train. In the Magnolia story, she writes about how that single chaotic moment completely rewired her thinking around money. She had always been the cautious one, the saver, the planner. Chip, on the other hand, had a free-spirited approach. Big dreams, bold bets, and a gut instinct that didn't always line up with a calculator. Up until that point, their financial life had been a whirlwind of Chip's spontaneous investments and Joanna's efforts to hold it all together. He was the kind of guy who would spend their last few $100s on a rusty house he believed he could flip, while she quietly stressed over how to buy nappies and pay rent. They had love, hustle, and heart, but not a whole lot of stability. And for Joanna, that jail moment was the final straw. Not because she was angry, but because she realized how dangerously close they were to everything falling apart. Digging through her shop's register and safe to scrape together bail money wasn't just stressful. It was a wake-up call. What if something bigger had happened? What if they'd needed more than $800? What if she hadn't had even that much? It forced her to confront a reality they'd been avoiding. Dreams need funding, and risk needs a safety net. From that point forward, Joanna became fiercely committed to building financial discipline into their lives. She didn't try to change who Chip was. She loved his vision and drive, but she made a promise to herself that they wouldn't live on the edge again. That meant emergency funds. That meant setting boundaries. That meant learning how to balance bold risks with smart preparation. This tension between them, her need for security and his hunger for risk, didn't go away overnight. But it became something they worked with instead of against. They learned to leverage their differences. Chip's drive would push them forward, while Joanna's discipline kept them grounded. That night shifted their dynamic from chaotic to intentional. And slowly, the balance they found between their opposing instincts became one of their biggest strengths in business and in life. It wasn't just about budgeting, it was about survival. And ultimately, that financial crossroads helped lay the foundation for everything they'd build together. What makes Chip and Joanna's story so fascinating isn't just their success. It's the wildly different ways they see money. If there were ever two people with opposing financial wiring, it's these two. Chip? He's the classic dreamer, always looking for the next big swing. Joanna? She's the steady hand, the one who likes plans, savings accounts, and knowing there's a cushion if things go sideways. Chip has joked that his financial motto is basically YOLO. For him, money is a tool to build something bold, something exciting. He's not afraid to bet the farm on a good idea, even if the farm isn't technically paid off yet. Nest eggs? He sees them as fuel for the fire, not something to hoard for a rainy day. On the flip side, Joanna is all about security. She grew up with a deep respect for saving and careful planning. For her, money isn't just about what it can do. It's about what it protects. This difference came to a head after the infamous dog ticket jail situation. Suddenly, the stakes were real. Joanna's instinct was to protect their future. She wanted systems, savings, and less of that financial freefall. Meanwhile, Chip didn't change overnight. He still had big ideas, but he started recognizing the value in Joanna's need for balance. Their push-pull became something powerful. Joanna once confessed she had a secret stash of savings, money she hid away just in case Chip got carried away with another can't-miss project. But here's the twist. Chip always found it. And every time he did, it would disappear into a fixer-upper or business idea. It was infuriating, but also somehow the heartbeat of their growth. That friction, the saver versus the spender, became part of their magic. Over time, instead of letting those clashing styles pull them apart, they found ways to harness them. Joanna's planning created a foundation strong enough to hold Chip's risk-taking. And Chip's boldness often brought opportunities Joanna wouldn't have pursued on her own. It wasn't easy. There were arguments. There were moments when it felt like they were on completely different planets. But learning to trust each other's instincts, while still protecting their shared vision, became the secret sauce in both their marriage and their empire. Their money mindsets couldn't be more different. But instead of choosing one over the other, they built something lasting by leaning into both. That's what made the difference. The leap from a jail cell to the top of a home renovation empire sounds like something out of a movie. But for Chip and Joanna Gaines, it was real life. What started as a financial and emotional low point, scrambling to bail Chip out of jail over unpaid dog fines, somehow became the ignition point for everything that followed. That night didn't just shake them, it shifted them. And instead of crumbling under the weight of poor decisions and mismatched money mindsets, they channeled all of it into something far greater than either of them could have imagined. Joanna, always the practical one, emerged from that moment with laser focus. Her cautious nature didn't just become a safeguard, it became a business strategy. She started making more intentional moves, paying closer attention to where every dollar went, and building systems that could support not only their family, but their growing dreams. Chip, on the other hand, didn't stop dreaming big, but he began to respect the structure Joanna brought to the table. It was like watching wild ambition and grounded wisdom start to move in sync. Their next steps weren't flashy, but they were powerful. They leaned into what they loved, fixing up homes and making spaces feel warm, intentional, and uniquely personal. What was once just a local hustle slowly grew into something bigger. They poured heart and hustle into their brand, Magnolia, which started small but carried a vision much larger than anyone expected. And then, almost like fate stepped in, their first big TV opportunity came not long after those financial struggles. It was as if the universe said, "All right, let's see what you can do with a second chance." Their charisma, relatability, and undeniable chemistry on screen quickly won viewers over. Suddenly, the couple who once feared bouncing checks were in living rooms across the country, teaching millions how to knock down walls, literally and metaphorically. The beauty of their story isn't just in the success, it's in how close they came to never having it. They turned a near breakdown into a breakthrough. From dog fines and financial tension to best-selling books, a TV network, and a brand that defines modern rustic charm. The Gaineses didn't just rise. They built, brick by brick, house by house, and moment by moment. They transformed their hardest lesson into a legacy. And somehow, it all started with 2 loose dogs and a night in jail. In the Magnolia story, Chip and Joanna Gaines do something most public figures rarely do. They tell the messy truth. It's not just a highlight reel of wins and magazine covers. Instead, they dive into the hard stuff, the missteps, the awkward fights, the silent tension over money, and the moments they genuinely didn't know how things would turn out. That's what makes their story not just inspiring, but deeply relatable. Joanna opens up about the guilt she carried for not being more vocal about their financial instability. For a long time, she admits, she kept quiet. She worried that raising concerns might dim Chip's fire or come across as unsupportive. But inside, she was terrified. The unpredictability, the lack of a safety net, the constant juggling. It was exhausting. And when the consequences of that silence came crashing down in the form of jail bail and drained savings, she realized that keeping the peace wasn't worth compromising their future. Juggling, Chip, for his part, doesn't sugarcoat it either. He reflects on how his go big or go broke attitude wasn't always brave. It was sometimes reckless. He talks about how easy it was to chase big dreams without stopping to consider the toll it was taking on Joanna or on their long-term stability. He had to learn that passion without planning wasn't leadership. It was gambling. But what truly sets their story apart is how they didn't let these differences divide them. Instead, they learned to meet in the middle. They figured out that their opposing instincts, his boldness and her caution, weren't flaws to fix, but strengths to harness. It took time, a lot of uncomfortable conversations, and a few financial gut punches, but they eventually found a rhythm that worked. Not just in business, but in life. They're proof that when couples stop pretending to have it all figured out and start talking honestly about money, values, and goals, real progress happens. It's not about agreeing on everything. It's about respecting the balance each person brings. Chip learned to slow down and listen. Joanna learned to speak up and trust her gut. Together, they stopped trying to change each other and started building something that honored both of their strengths. The biggest takeaway from their journey isn't how to build a brand. It's how to build a partnership. One honest, sometimes awkward, but always intentional step at a time. So, let's talk about that headline. Chip Gaines' sentence, life imprisonment. Sounds scandalous, right? But here's the twist. It's not what you think. No orange jumpsuits, no courtroom drama. The real sentence wasn't behind bars. It was in the day-to-day grind of becoming better. Better with money, better in marriage, and better as a father, a partner, and a businessman. That one chaotic night in jail didn't end a chapter. It started a lifelong transformation. Chip's life sentence turned out to be a commitment to growth. That night was just the catalyst. It cracked open a version of him that had been running on instinct and adrenaline, hoping that charisma and hustle would carry the day. But when you're forced to confront your own recklessness, when your wife has to empty out her shop to bail you out of county jail, it kind of shakes your world. And that shake-up, it stuck with him. There was no warden, but there was a mental cage, one made of financial stress, blind optimism, and the belief that everything would just work itself out. That mindset had to go, and breaking free from that invisible prison took something far more difficult than a one-night stay in jail. It required humility, introspection, the ability to say, "I messed up," and then actually do something about it. Chip began to see that real freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from learning how to work in harmony with someone else, especially when that someone is wired completely differently from you. Joanna, with her quiet strength and calculated caution, didn't try to cage his spirit. She helped shape it. And in return, he began listening more, respecting the power of planning, and finding the balance between dreaming big and living wisely. That's the kind of imprisonment that actually leads to freedom. The freedom to build a family that thrives. The freedom to grow a business that reflects both passion and purpose. The freedom to wake up every day and know you're no longer trapped by your own worst habits. So yes, Chip Gaines was sentenced, but not in the way the headline suggests. His sentence is one of daily growth, hard-earned wisdom, and an enduring partnership that turned past mistakes into a foundation for something extraordinary. And if that's what a life sentence looks like, he's serving it with purpose and zero regrets. So why does this story still hit home, even years later? Why do people keep coming back to this unlikely tale of a dog-related arrest and financial chaos turned fixer-upper empire? It's because behind the Magnolia brand, the TV shows, the curated homes, and the neatly packaged aesthetic is something refreshingly real. A couple who didn't start with it all figured out. In fact, they started in the mess, just like most of us. Chip and Joanna Gaines aren't icons because they're perfect. They're icons because they're not. They didn't rise to fame on a flawless track record. They rose because they made mistakes, learned from them, and had the courage to share it. The fact that Joanna had to dig through her shop's register to bail Chip out of jail is not exactly the kind of story you expect from a couple with a multi-million-dollar empire. But it's exactly what makes them relatable. It's messy, awkward, and human. And that's what makes it matter. In a world where social media often shows only the shiny stuff, perfect houses, smiling families, and successful businesses, it's easy to feel like everyone else has it all together, like you're the only one struggling to pay bills or keep a dream alive. But then you hear a story like this, and suddenly the fog lifts. If the Gaineses could start from bounced checks, money fights, and clashing visions and still build what they did, maybe there's hope for the rest of us, too. This story serves as a quiet nudge for anyone who's ever felt stuck. For the couple arguing over finances. For the dreamer who keeps hearing no. For the saver who feels like they're always cleaning up someone else's mess. For anyone who's ever wondered if their mistakes disqualify them from success, this is your reminder that they don't. In fact, they just might be the training ground for something bigger. Chip and Joanna's journey proves that you don't need to start with a perfect plan. You just need honesty, grit, and the willingness to grow. And most importantly, you need someone by your side who's willing to build with you, not despite the flaws, but through them. Their story matters because it reminds us that success isn't about skipping the struggle. It's about learning how to rise from it. And that's a lesson worth holding on to. Chip Gaines didn't go to prison for life, but he did get a lifetime of perspective from one unforgettable night in county jail and the challenges that followed. Whether you're a risk-taker like Chip or a saver like Joanna, there's something to learn from their story. How you handle pressure, partnership, and planning could define your own fixer-upper moments in life. We hope this video gave you a new way to look at the Gaineses, not just as HGTV icons, but as a couple who turned chaos into clarity, one lesson at a time. If you found this story engaging, smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more real stories behind the headlines. We dive deep into the moments that shape today's public figures and the things you won't find in the highlight reels. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and never underestimate the power of a good financial wake-up call.